show. Fucking hell.
I like the rush a little, misunderstood a little. We're all the same a little. Someone just wanna be bad. Not got him bad, bad.
Happy 2024, everybody. The Dagster is back with you with Barn, and look what the cat drug in. It's been a minute since we've done a show.
As professional as always.
How are we,
We
guys?
love it.
Hello, we're back in 2024. We're doing it again. Had to drag Barney off his deathbed. Had to pull Oli out of whatever shrubs he was living in at the time, but different story. Boys, how are we?
Yeah, good. As I said, had a bit of the new year brought me the spicy cough, which was good. Had me pretty well stuffed for 4 or 5 days, but almost back to full health, so that's good.
Good to hear that. It took a while to get you back up to match fitness for us to, I guess.
Fucking not even close to match fitness, but that's a whole different story.
That is a whole different story. Let's start from the start, actually, now I think of this. And remember how to podcast. Who are we? It's Footy and Frothies. Thanks. We're in our 5th year now, so everyone that has stuck around for that time since 2019. Obviously, you know what you're in for if you've listened to this. For those listening the first time or watching on YouTube for the first time, we look at rugby league. I was going to say rugby league from every angle. That's been taken.
No, we can't do that.
We look at rugby league and talk about it lots over beers. From the Grey Gums Hotel in Western Sydney. We get stuck into 2 shows each and every week, preview and review time. Leading into this pre-season, we might as well put the itinerary out now. We're going to just, I guess, for using a racing pilot, we're going to have a barrier trial today and just touch on all the news we've missed over the last 4 months. Share a few thoughts and answer a few questions from the socials. Within the next week or two, we're going to do a Supercoach speculation show with Danon, who's won the last couple, and potentially GT or whoever else wants to reach out and wants to join us. More than welcome to, and just touch on the early prices, any absolute early thoughts that have grabbed us in team picker land. It's very hot today. I'm used to doing this show in the cold.
Won't be long. We'll be back
then
there.
within the next, I guess, month will be our world famous 4 or 5 hour full-on pre-season preview show where we get stuck into each and every team, all the changes and what we actually think is going to happen as we get into NRL season 2024, which kicks off. Well, the trials kick off, in fact, on February the 15th. So not far away at all, with Canterbury and Melbourne kicking us off. I'll run through all of that later on. So, yeah, just to bring you up to speed, that's what's going on. We're going to touch on some news, talk some shit, and just get our eye back in for the season. Barn, as you're saying, you've just come off your deathbed, but how'd you get through Christmas? What's going on?
That's fantastic, mate. It's the best, one of the best times of the year, isn't it? You get around with all your friends and the relatives, and you know, some people like their relatives more than others. But and I had a fantastic time during the Christmas period. I don't get a lot of time off work during this time, just for the work that I do. But the time that we did have with family and friends was brilliant. How about yourself, mate?
Very good. Yeah, spent a lot of time with the kids. Miss Lara's on a cruise. Haven't seen her for a couple of weeks.
Oh, nice. You'd love that.
She's on a cruise with a friend. But, yeah, it's been good. Lots of kids' time, lots of slothing, lots of cricket. We might
beverages.
Too many beverages, but nothing out of the unusual for me. So let's see what we can scrape up for a New Year's revolution in terms of that. Oliver, you've been sitting in stunned silence this whole time. Speak to your adoring fans of rugby league, in my opinion.
Evan Parsons, if you're listening to this, comment Bananarama on the next Facebook post.
Do you know there's a period where we're convinced you were Evans Parsons?
Yes, there was.
And then maybe I'll comment Bananarama on the next Facebook post. You'll
You've
never know.
certainly checkmated us, haven't you, Oliver?
Just make sure you log out before you log back in.
Yeah. Anything to add? How was your Christmas, mate?
It was good. I spent it in St. Vincent and the Grenadines growing the great game of rugby league. It went really well as well. We had 2 teams, but then the tribalism between St. Vincent and St. Grenadines got a little bit heated. Might have caused a civil war and a coup, so I've come back home.
Is Gravy still over there?
Who's still over there?
Gravy.
Gravy?
Yeah.
What, you mean the
Big West Indian cricket fan.
Gravy?
Anyway, move on. Don't worry about it.
So you just went and started
The
a
swordfish
civil war and left.
I didn't mean to start a civil war. I meant to grow the amazing game of rugby league over to
spread the gospel.
St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and they both really got into it. Let's say that, and kind of had to wipe my hands of that one and just step away for a minute.
It's glad to see you haven't lost your knack for talking absolute garbage.
I'm also glad you mentioned that and not like Gaza or something. But we'll move on from all of that. And
Well, you did
what?
just then.
Okay. Anyhow, you're right. Family good. Paddy good. You ready for footy?
I don't know. I've been
Have you got the
overseas.
itch yet for rugby league?
The itch
In
for
your
rugby
opinion?
league.
Yeah.
Hey, boys.
Oh.
Never leaves, does it? Lives in your blood, surely.
It hasn't come back for about 10 years. But anyway,
Oh, right.
since the Titans lost that prelim final to the Roosters in 2010. God damn it, Barney! Why'd you have to remind me? I might go back. Civil War's better than this. I shouldn't say that. Sorry.
I will say during the
shouldn't
last
say that.
test, during the last test, they did play a rugby league in LA promo, and I may have had a few beers, but
Got a little stirred up, did we?
I cried actual tears of happiness. And you can ask my missus that. So
It does actually look quite good, that promo that they put out.
I'm ready and ripping to go. So we talked enough shit.
Just about.
I didn't really have a format for this, so let's. I've done some notes, obviously, because I always do. Being
Yeah,
a professional, I
yeah,
am.
absolutely.
Just touching on a few things. Anything for me, boys, before I read off my list?
Anything from you?
For me, anything you want to raise or chat about? Or?
I'm sure there'll be quite a few talking points in and around your obsession in life when we get to those.
Which one's that?
The NRL.
Oh, okay. Right. Okay. All right. Let's.
Let's not talk about that.
Let's.
kind of
I
stuff.
don't want to drag the mood
Jesus.
down, but I just want to quickly pass some condolences to friends, family of Carl Webb,
Of course.
who lost his fight with motor neurone disease. Very, very sad. It's a fucker of a disease, and he was a spokesman for that, but obviously remembered for his toughness on a rugby league field, and very sad there. And also condolences to friends and family of Troy Dargan, who lost his life over Christmas. Very sad story. Just signed with the Raiders, I believe.
Yeah.
So that sucks. Really sucks. So get that out of the way before we get into anything you want to add. No?
Not really. No.
We'll get it straight into the biggest controversy of the Christmas New Year period. And can you believe that Brian Tuo wore a fucking Bulldogs jersey
Controversy.
on New Year's Eve? Can you believe that? Just what a...
I saw a
shocker.
whole heap of people saying it was a Samoan jersey, but the angle made it look like a Dogs jersey.
No,
but
it objectively was
it
a Bulldogs
definitely
jersey.
a Dogs
Like,
jersey.
Um,
I didn't pay too much attention to it, to be honest. But yeah, what do you say? He'd be probably playing games with his good mate Stephen Crichton, and it would have all been a bit of a laugh, I would imagine. Who knows? He might end up there down in the future. They don't mind poaching a panther or two, but
He should have done something weird. Like he should have just worn like a Manly jersey or something.
yeah, right.
Like he's never going to go to fucking Manly.
Tigers
Like
jersey.
you never just wear a Manly jersey or a team that never gets linked to a Penrith player at all.
no, what it was absolute complete fucking beat up from News Limited, and what a fucking wank that was. And we all move on from social media and outrage because who cares? But I guess it's a world we live in. Golden Boot was awarded to James Fisher-Harris, first forward since Andrew Farrell in 2004. I think only the third forward of all time. So congratulations to him. Cool.
I mean, you look back on like at least his accolades during the past year. He's won his third premiership in a row. Captain New Zealand to their biggest ever win over Australia. Captain New Zealand to the Pacific Championship. Got the Golden Boot. I think he was one of the props of the year as well. Maybe in the NRL.
generally is.
Like it's in terms of like statistical accolades. Like you'd be hard pressed to find a player in the past few years or so that's done as much in the past.
Few years or so.
Yeah, few years
You know
or
what?
so.
I think he was probably a better player
2 years
12
ago?
months ago
Yeah, I
than
agree.
what he was in this previous last 12 months. Not to take anything away from him. He was
Well, a lot of those are
easily
team accolades.
easily top 2-3 forwards in the game, but I think probably this time 12 to 18 months ago he was the number one.
Yes. I don't particularly think he's the number one anymore. But
He's
I'm
very
not,
fucking close.
He's very close.
And I'm not going to tell him he's not.
he's the league's scariest man. But absolutely richly deserved. I was super happy to see him get his chocolates. If you've listened to our show, you know how much we love
Oh, absolutely
props
love
and
and
middle
adore him.
forwards,
Yeah.
and especially him amongst the many. So kudos to him. Just on that, just to get out of the way, David Middleton's Rugby League annual came out this week, and his NRL Team of the Week
Oh, right.
of the year for 2023 was Reece Walsh, Dallin Wateni Lesniak, Herbie Farnsworth, Stephen Crichton, Izako, Mayam, Johnson, Fish, Grant, Haas, Martin, Frizzell, Tohu. So whatever that means, comment. It's pretty close to what we came up with.
It would be very, very close to what a majority of people would say, I would imagine. Over the entirety of the season, yeah, it's pretty hard to argue with most of those. Like, you could probably say Cleary, obviously at the end of the year, was by far the best halfback running around. But if you look at it as looking at the entirety of the season, Johnson probably does pip him, considering the times he was out and injured and whatever, and the rest of it. So, yeah, it's very hard to argue with any of those.
Absolutely. Should we touch on some social stuff? We should get into some news and chew over that first.
Have a crack at the socials.
All right, quickly. Well, actually, because since we've posted since last time we spoke, we had our bowl prediction show, and a few people chimed in and left some predictions on that. So I'll just read them out just for the sake of completion. What have we got here? At Speedy Bros has predicted Knights to make the top 4, Dolphins and Manly top 8, replacing the Sharks and the Raiders. 3-0 Queensland. Harry Grant, Dally M. Dimitri Obi sacked by Souths and replaced by Madge. Warriors Broncos grand final with Warriors winning the comp. And Luai to join the Roosters with Kira retiring or joining the Tigers. So he's already missed that last one there. Chris Kalsabek, who's been with us all the way through, found the show, did mention that Tigers make the 8 Appy for Hooker of the Year, Baller for Fullback of the Year. He's a very smart man, Chris.
That'd be amazing to see Buller go from first year to fullback of the year after. But.
Yeah.
Definitely would.
I wonder which club he'll go to halfway through the season so I can get that.
Yeah, you're a fuckwit. Let's. I might save the other talking points. Actually, very quickly, Rugby League, my opinion, said, how far do we get in the season before Barney strangles Daggy because he said the show would be done by 9 and the review's only done by 11:15. I'm going to say round 3.
I actually had a thought about this earlier in the day, and I don't think I'll actually be strangling anyone because I've learnt the older I get, the less I enjoy a punch in the face. So that may result in me getting punched in the head, and I don't think I want that. So there will more than likely be an expletive-laden rant, and quite possibly a go and
a threaten to quit, as happens usually sometimes.
Go and enjoy some sexual favours with yourself, and I'm leaving. But I don't think I'll be strangling anyone.
We are going to try and have in quick time. I think our previews should be up earlier most of this year, but that's a whole different story. Look, we might. I'm going to save the other couple of questions for as I read through YouTube as well for a bit later on as we get to teams, because I've done some notes on each team, gone to each page, sort of scraped out what news we've missed and over the season just for some talking points. So where they fit, I'll throw up those other few questions. Should we start with the big fish in the room or the elephant in the room, the Tigers, or should we save that one?
Get your rant out of the way now.
Actually, I don't have a rant. I didn't plan a rant this week. Okay, we'll start with the West Tigers off-season. As predicted on the bold prediction show by one Oliver, which incredibly we'd written you off for winning this year, but I suppose you're $1.50 now to be in front anyway. A long way to go. They dismissed the board, including Pascoe and Hapakinellis. Hapakinellis, I just get it wrong. They've installed Shane Richardson as the interim CEO, Barrow Fowler interim chairman. Just yesterday, they removed Scott Fulton from his duties, or relieved Scott Fulton, so they've already cut down on some, I guess, factional bullshit within the club, which I like. In the meantime, they've signed Solomon Aomalo from Super Rugby, Solomon Fatapi, who was one of the stars of Brisbane Tigers' Brisbane Cup Premiership last year. Justin Olam has agreed to see out the remainder of his 3-year contract at the Tigers. I think they're basically going to transfer the contract, is my understanding.
Right.
Passed some medical yesterday. It hasn't been announced yet, but I believe that's happening.
I'd heard that it was happening, but I haven't. Yeah, obviously no details have come out yet. But
and obviously the big talking point is Jerome Lai signed for a 5-year deal, 1.2 a year, from Penrith, which is on paper, love him or hate him, and we've fluctuated on that at times. One of the biggest signings, the incumbent, I guess, New South Wales 5'8", premiership winning 5'8", to come and play at the moment 7 and be, the backbone of the club. Ollie, you're itching to talk about all of this. What are your thoughts on what's happened to the West Tigers in their recent times?
Well, first of all, I'll touch on the whole board dismissal thing. And I personally, and I've seen people as well calling for this for years. And I said I think this is probably the smartest, I don't know if you want to call it transfer decision or whatever the Tigers have made in a while.
Oh, since they've become an entity.
Yeah, this is probably. I think this is going to be the most beneficial in the long term, and it's the best decision they've made in a while. I've seen people straight away jump to the gun like they'll make the 8 now, they'll make top 10. I don't think so. I think
people have been telling. That's right. People people telling us Bulldogs have been making the 8 for the last 3 years.
I think on the field, not a whole lot's going to change in 2024, but I feel like off the field, it's going to be a much more positive outlook on the Tigers. I mean, the media will still say what they want to say, and people will bag on the club, but I think that honestly it's a good decision, and we'll start seeing those changes being made for 2025. Like, people have been talking about the Tigers rebuild starting last year, the year before, whatever. This is where the actual rebuild starts, from the absolute ground up, and it's going to take time. I don't think they're going to improve that much in 2024 because of the board leaving. In fact, because they've only got a temporary board in that now, they've got to actually bring in who's going to be the proper board so they can start working through things. I think in the long term, this will be beneficial. Short term, it's just something that's necessary. Not much is going to change right now, but I think eventually it's going to be for the better. In terms of signing Jerome Luai for the amount of money, now I'm someone who loves Jerome Luai because so many people hate him. Right, I'm that kind of guy. But as a club, I don't think it's necessarily the best decision for the Tigers to be signing a 5'8" on that kind of money when they don't have a halfback. Now, yes, they're going to play him at halfback, but personally for me, I've not seen that much at all throughout Jerome Luai's playing career to suggest that he would work as a halfback. I get they're putting a lot on him, but we've talked about the past 2 years, how he's not really put in consistent game-winning performances since about, 2021? Maybe halfway through 2022. So I'm a bit iffy about that. I understand why they've done it because there's no halfbacks out there really, so you might as well go for one of the most high-profile 5'8s, but it could work. I like that Appy's there with him as well. I don't know. I don't see it being a massive positive unless they get a halfback in during that 5-year period. That sort of allows Luai to really feed into his running game. I can't see him turning into a halfback, but on Jerome Luai's point of view, people have been saying, oh, well, he obviously doesn't care about premierships if he signed with the Tigers. Well, he's won 3 of them. Like, premierships might not be his focus anymore. It might be making the most he can out of this sport, which is fair enough. And the club that's going to offer him the most is the West Tigers. So I hope it works out for both parties, but I just can't see it working out to its fullest potential for Luai at the Tigers without there being a halfback there. I can't see him being the halfback.
Thoughts, Barn?
Yeah, agree wholeheartedly with the board decision. Tigers probably improved their roster in the last 12 months more than they have done for quite a long time. Realistically, in the last decade, where they basically have lurched from one disaster to another for a good 10 years. And that can only help if you're giving the coach complete autonomy to move forward, basically pick his roster and
with all
his
due respect
people.
to him, I really like them just going, it's Scott Fulton.
No.
We don't need the bullshit. I'm backing Benji. He'll have who he wants, and thanks for coming.
Well, the fact that he got completely blindsided on his appointment to begin with,
Correct.
and then there was also players trying to be signed without any knowledge of coaching staff and people within the organisation. That just spells disaster, no matter what.
And the flip side of, apparently Clemmer being shopped around with no knowledge of anyone, but essentially it being a made-up story.
Fulton wanting Schuster for $1 million
and the only person
season
that has
and all the rest of it.
within the Tigers in the media was S4. But anyways, different story.
And there was a few problems with the Fultons coming out of Manly over the last few years, which has caused a few problems in their backroom stuff as well. So, the freedom that they seem to be giving Benji now, if they don't give him 18 months to 2 years to try and realise what's going on, then that'll be a failure. But he needs to be given at least half a season with Luai when he does come along. Benji was always a 5'8" as well, who actually matured
played
into quite
seven.
a good
Won a
halfback
Golden Boot at
at the back end of his career, and I think that can work with Luai. The big question mark I have is his kicking game. Obviously, he's probably not going to be the guy to kick him around the field, but I think they could probably straighten him up enough to get his ball runners on his inside and outside to cause enough problems to move forward, as long as there's another conducive half there with a bit of a kicking game.
When you finish talking, Barn, can you go and grab my little blue notepad and a pen?
Of course, mate.
Anyway, no
no
wait,
worries.
no rush. Yeah, go.
Everything seems to be building towards something in 18 months' time, but I'm not sure how far they progress in the next 12 months. The bar is set pretty low, though. Like, realistically, they only need to win 5 games this year to be a team that's performed better than the team that ran around last year. So I can see them getting somewhere up near the 8 to 10 games and, being in that pack in and around that 14 to 6th, where we're going to see a whole heap of teams stuck in there again, just like we said last year. I can see 8 or 9 teams all fighting for those last couple of spots. But
I like everything that's happened. I don't know if you guys noticed this, I'm a Tigers fan, but I like everything that's happened. I really like Shane Richardson as a CEO, because he doesn't cop shit. He's been through it before. I liked and I wish I could credit the podcast, can't think of it right now. I liked what he had to say before his appointment about what the Tigers should do. They've got the best or second best nerd. Is there a little blue book in there, Barn? Yeah, somewhere in there. Anyway, and a pen, if you can see one, probably in the front pocket of that. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Just removing the curtain here. I liked everything that he did at Souths, everything he's done at Penrith, everything he's done along the way in between. He gets it. He gets rugby league, and he's already starting to just crack down on the bullshit. And I think it's fantastic. It's exciting for me because I think he's the right person to do it. When we live in a world where there's nothing but articles about how Tigers miss them or miss this player, that player, or the other player, for them to sign Luai immediately is a statement to say, okay, well, we've got one now. What's next? They've then gone out and chased outside backs. So we've talked on the show that they have an international forward pack. Like, they factually do. Clemmer, Stefano, Bateman, Pappy.
all in and around that
Wherever it might
representative
be.
level.
Yeah. And so getting them all fit, getting Appy hopefully re-signed again and up and going. It's all positive. Look, do I think they're going to go and storm into the 8? No, but if they run 10th with all systems go and a bunch of youngsters, I'll be a happy boy coming next year, because I think we're going to see what Fano's got under the bonnet. We've got Galvin coming through. Got to see the best of Madam Moore and some of those juniors which have raps for ages. What they do with Pole, whether he becomes the new Spencer Lenu and plays off the bench instead of playing. I don't think he's a ball-playing lock, but he
Doesn't
could be
seem to be, no.
I reckon he's a better. Some of his runs are a
Bit of an impact
Yeah,
player.
I reckon he might be better off playing 20 minutes and being a new Spencer. All of that is exciting. I think it's
Olam's one
positive
I
things.
don't think anyone really touched on.
No.
Adds a bit of X factor. Can put a shot on, can just bust through the line and score tries out of sort of nothing with a one-on-one up against his opposition. Whether he's afforded enough times to be able to do that is interesting. The thing for mine that probably is a little bit of a worry is you don't see a lot of players get on the wrong side of the Melbourne system and then come out and be better once they go. So,
No, that's right.
Whether that's an attitude thing or just
And their edge defence was particularly not great last year.
Apparently, it was a workload sort of issue from what I've heard. The
Right.
training and attitude around training, so probably doesn't bode well. But you'll see some highlights out of him in the Tigers jersey. So.
And they need it. At the end of the day, we're coming from Kapoa and Tommy Talea. So, there's got to be upside there. We won't spend the whole show on the Tigers, and we'll get moving along. But I guess the only other question that sort of came to mind in terms of looking at those signings is that the future doesn't look particularly bright for Adam Dewey.
No.
Because
Definitely not.
unless he can become a centre and you have 2-strike centres, I don't know. I don't know if he's necessarily a 14 when you got Talon De Silva, Bud Sullivan, those sort of blokes as a 14. I don't quite know. A lot of work for him to do. Maybe he could be. Maybe him and Luai will be fantastic. I haven't even touched on Luai himself. I've obviously made lots of comparisons to him and Luke Brooks. I think that I'm optimistic. I'm not going to say he's going to come in and change the world, but I think as pretty much everything you said, I agree with that. He could be a running half, very, very good connection with outside with back row, which Luke Brooks never had. Didn't really bring, you've got a destructive player in Papai there that never really
just has to straighten up that little bit. He can't be as sideways if he's going to be running from the middle of the field as a 7.
Exactly. So, but Benji's not an idiot. So in him we trust, and I think all positive.
I think Appy will help him with that as well. Jumping out and driving forward and making him sort of come to the ball.
Luai's best, if we're probably being serious, Luai's best football as a player was with Appy. If we're saying last year, I actually don't. Last year, between injury and everything else, in hindsight, I don't think I can be as critical as I have been in the past. But his 2021, 22 was good enough. Was good.
He always did seem to get sort of stuck on an edge a little bit in the Penrith system, which led to him having to sort of try and find a way in and around the defence, which led to that sort of step in from side to side and looking for players to play with. If he's structured more in the middle of the field, then surely you put the structures around him with blokes on his inside and outside.
And I guess we're going to see what
makes different decision.
All of those 5'8s bring to the table, whether it is a Galvin, whether it is a Fainu, whether it is a Dewey. We'll see. A Caesar.
Dewey's an interesting one. He's got a lot of skill in what we've seen in the times, but it seems more injury prone than the majority of players that you've seen recently. Obviously, it's proven.
It factually is.
The bloke spent three out of the last 4 years on the sideline.
He can't. He just doesn't feel like someone. He's big enough to be, and skilled enough to be. He doesn't feel like someone can be crafted into a ball playing lock. Whereas if you really drove Jackson Hastings to do it, he'd be able to do it, or someone like that.
Quite possibly, yeah.
I don't necessarily feel like making 40 tackles suits Adam Dewey's
style. Absolutely not.
Probably spent enough on the Tigers. Any final thoughts?
So. No, there's a lot of positives, but a lot that needs to be played out before you can actually count them as positives. So.
It's the right direction, which for once
seems
the compass facing
the
north is a
platform
nice
seems
feeling.
to be getting set.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Ollie, we might top up because we spent half hour in the intro, and then we can punch through some of these teams. Alrighty. The final word on the Tigers, though, after back from a little sojourn, is I don't think they win the spoon, though. I will say though, they'd have to be particularly bad to win the spoon this year.
Who's worse?
Yeah,
Dragons.
It's going to be tough.
They still got Ben Hunt for now.
We've got Aiden Caesar for now.
I forgot.
Let's get to the... I just want to pass on quick congratulations. Just saw it pop up on the socials. I was at the bar. To friend of the show, Dan Payne, who just bought a beautiful-looking house with his beautiful partner. So,
nice.
The Rugby League antique guru is moving up in the world, so well done to him. Let's get to the Bulldogs, who have a particularly bad website. I discovered after perusing all the websites the other night doing this. They don't seem to like updating it, so...
Yeah, right.
Don't blame them.
They do have the spoon for the worst website in the NRL, but, when you don't have much to talk about, I suppose, what are you going to do? That said, Jason Taylor's joined their coaching staff this year. That's a good pickup. And Connor Tracy, since we last spoke, has gone there on a 3-year deal. We'll get the Sharks, but they received the young fella in return, who we'll get to. They've also since signed Josh Curran, Drew Hutchinson, Kurt Mann, Jake Turpin, Pawasa Fasumwali. Mitchell Woods is the one that's gone the other way. Mitchell Woods is the gun junior that was an AFL star as well that they've signed. I believe he's a half.
Right.
But he's only young. You will see. I think he's a developmental player for now. We'll join the top 30 next year. What do we make of the Bulldogs in terms of... Early on, I know we're going to obviously go into much bigger depth about squads in a couple of weeks.
The recruitment's baffling, man.
Phil Gill running it, and Phil Gill, I'm sure, will go on record and say they're all footballers.
Yeah.
But they've signed 6 utilities.
You just find a spot
Josh
for
Curran,
them.
great signing, don't get me wrong. Luke Thompson's still there.
Stephen Crichton,
as far as I
great
know.
signing.
Yeah, great signings. But they've gone and picked up bits and pieces to go into a team of bits and pieces. What?
They're trying to find a 6 and a 7. Like, to be honest,
They're trying to invent one.
They're
with
trying to
blokes that
invent a 6 and 7 out of those, like 5 of those blokes that you just mentioned. Whether Tracy ends up playing fullback with centre, wing, or they do try to shuffle him into the halves. You've got Kurt Mann, who I assume will be probably playing a bit of backup 9 and a bit of time in the middle.
Probably 14 to start the season.
Yeah, and a whole heap of players like that they're not sure whether they're going to be whether they're going to end up in the halves, whether they're going to end up as a bench utility. They're going to end up with the reserve bench of 4 utilities sitting on the bench by the looks of it.
Well, this is the thing, especially a team where Hayes Perham was fine, but didn't necessarily rubber stamp himself to be a 1. We don't know what Crichton was there to be a 1, essentially.
But they got chewed up in the middle just about every week.
Well, this is what I understand. Like, why wouldn't you be going? And I'm sure they were in a market for Fanua Blake. They were in a market, I believe, for a bit for Atukamanu. They were trying a few others. And Josh Curran's fantastic, actually. Josh Curran good and will probably spend a lot of time in the middle.
Will definitely help. The likes of
maybe
Josh
play
Jackson.
lock and just be working his ass off in the middle. Might be his future. And there were some injuries along the way. But how are they going to, talking of teams running last, and I'm a big fan of most of those players, how are they going to improve, Ollie?
I don't think they are going to improve. It's been the same story for the past 6-7 years. It's during the year for the next season, they sign a bunch of players, and apparently they're going to make the 8 the next year, and then they finish in the bottom 4. Then the next year, they release half of those players so they can sign some more players to join the team the next year. Then they finish in the bottom 4, or they go on one of those weird, miraculous runs for the last 5 weeks where they win every game and finish 12th. And it's just rinse and repeat. Like, honestly, I don't see how that team's going to improve. And if you actually look...
You don't win those. But the thing is, even when they were running last and they had those miraculous runs, that was on the back of forward packs. You don't win. You don't have that late season run without a strong forward pack.
It's just the thing is too, like, and I look at the signings that they've made each year over the past few years, and to be honest, on paper, their signings this year their signings for 2024 are probably the weakest in comparison to some of those signings. I mean, obviously Stephen Crichton's your big one, your big signing, and I think that he himself will have a positive impact and probably a good season. But again, it's the same story with so many clubs. Like, they need a halfback. Like, they need someone controlling. They need a controlling player in the side, and they just don't have that. Unfortunately, they're rarer than the Ark of the Covenant these days. Like a solid halfback that can steer the side around the park. So I kind of get it, but
Well, Toby Sexton, who's a good, solid tradesman, to use one of my phrases.
Well, he's fine, but he's not that up. I could still see a situation where Toby Sexton's the halfback for a whole year and they still finish in the bottom 4. Like, I don't know. I kind of want...
And we probably go into bat for him heaps because he's kicking off the back foot and doing all this sort of stuff.
And all the issues aren't going to be his fault. But I kind of like, at this point, I kind of like to see a season with the Bulldogs where they go, right, we're actually going to try and build on what we have and try and have a look at what's positive in the squad and who's consistently playing well and trying to build around them, not necessarily by going out and signing other quote-unquote star players, but players who will help them play to their best, and maybe just have a look at who's in their nursery, because we hear about all these players. The Bulldogs are one of those clubs that supposedly have at least a solid nursery with players coming through.
And I think they won't have Oloapu for the season. I think he's having neck surgery.
The rumour is they're trying to get him to medically retire or something. So I heard that a couple months back.
Allegedly,
of course. But
Right.
and again, a couple of those blokes are popping up, like Wilsons and stuff like that for the Dogs. But I feel like they just need to take at least a year where they don't go out and sign a bunch of first-grade players and make some kind of Frankenstein of a squad each year, and actually try to build something and see if that works for a couple of seasons, because they've not done it for so long.
Barn, will this be Gus's biggest failure if this goes all right?
He'll still be there for another year, possibly 2. They need 2 big pillars in the middle. They need 2 forwards that are just happy to put in 40 or 50-minute stint and just rage through the middle of the field. I can see them winning 2 or 3 games off the back of their forward pack, because there are the likes of your Currans and Jackson that plays in the back row, a young fella.
No,
not
Preston.
Jackson. Preston.
Sam Woods. I can't think of his name now. There's another young fella that was quite good at the back end.
Yes, yeah, there was.
And I feel bad.
And there'll be a couple of games where they aim up and they'll get them home for 2 or 3 games, and there might be again, 2 or 3 games where they just get on a roll for somehow, and the back line's killing it, and you got blokes like Crichton scoring a couple of tries, Perham chimes in, Tracy, I think we'll find a spot there somewhere, but where he ends up, I think they should be playing him at fullback, or
I think if they're going to be
if
serious,
it's all going to go to
given
hell,
how bits
put
and
him at
pieces
6.
it is,
But
you strap the rocket to Connor Tracy. So you're our fullback, you play direct.
you saw what he did.
And
for
you say we're going to have the
the
2 best
time you
centres in
gave
the
him
comp.
at
We're going to have
Sharks.
Crichton and we're going to have Burton play centre.
yeah.
Play Drew Hutchinson at 6.
You got the young winger
Sexton
there
at
who was
at
killing
7,
it.
and then you go from
Wilson that came through.
Great player. And Carraz.
Carraz,
That gives you a star-studded, a great back 5.
So
and
if
you
they
just gotta
do
then work
poke
the
their
rest
nose
out.
through the middle, they can get on the outside of
gives
some
you
teams. They've got
pace.
some real good
Yeah.
pace out there and
Yeah.
some evasive players.
But
But I can't see them
I'm
beating.
sure they'll go
How many-
completely opposite. They'll probably go and start Burton and Crichton 1 and 6, and maybe they'll be fantastic.
Unless they're
But
going to play
Burton's
touch
now-
footy for the entire
Burton's
year,
now
I can't see them
exposed, and I just
getting over the top of a lot of
I would
teams.
be saying, like, let's have the 2 best strike centres in the comp. If we make a break, you're not catching them.
You got to get the ball to them though, and you got to
Well,
get them
Sexton
good
getting the
ball
ball.
too. You can't just give them flat
And a little bit of
ball
that's got to
and-
go back on Reed too, actually. Trying to find this fella.
They've got some good players there that can cause problems.
Samuel
but-
Hughes.
Yeah,
Good. It's good when he came through. Max King, they've got the bare bones of something, but it's almost like a strip. It feels like a strip carcass.
I'm surprised they didn't go and get 3 forwards. I
Any
don't
of 'em.
understand
and let
why.
Corey Waddell go. Not.
Apparently,
he's
he's training the house down and he's
cure
as fit
cancer,
as he's
but-
ever been. But
I'm sure he is.
I don't understand why they didn't go and get at least 2 big bodies for the middle of the field from wherever
we
they
didn't
could get
mention,
them from.
and you throw Blake Taff in there. Well, Blake Taff could play 7. Could play
or
6.
he'd probably play 1. But
Well, I would go. I would almost go Taff 6, Tracy 1. I just think as a direct, strong, tackle busting fullback, that's where you're going to get the best out of Connor
it's
Tracy.
going to be really interesting to see the style of football that they go with because, with all- as you said, with all the bits and pieces that they're trying to jam in
Jamin
here
Salmon
together,
and other bits and pieces.
it's
Another
going to
bitzer.
be very interesting at the way that they attack other football teams.
I don't think they do. I think they just get blown off a lot. We haven't mentioned Fox, actually, but in terms of outside backs, I have grave concerns, is what we'll say. We'll say, I guess, anything to add on the Dogs?
Obviously, Burton should be better another year under his belt, but
But he's now 2 years in to being a 5'8", and he convinced he's not a top. Would you call him a top 5'8"?
I think he'll end up being a 13. But
Maybe that's the way to go. A lot of work at 13, no? Same as Dewey, and I know he's faster.
he's
Dewey.
big enough.
He is big enough, but it's just a different setup. Anything else on the Dogs?
Well, they'll at least make the grand final because of the whole making a grand final every year.
Against who? St Kitts or what?
That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, completely confusing. And until you see them play 5 or 6 games, I've got no idea how they're even going to put their footy team up against the other ones that are coming at them. So
I'm just trying to think. Yeah. It has to be touch footy. They're going to play touch footy. We'll say that we do have a 6-hour session coming up at some point.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about that. Cowboys, they re-signed Tommy Dearden, 5-year deal. Very well done. Good stuff.
correct.
Jordan McLean signed an extension since last we spoke. And Jimmy Maloney is the new assistant coach, I believe the attacking coach. So, hey, cool. All good signs for the Cowboys. Do we need to talk about any of that?
Not really a solid either bottom half of the 8 to top half of the bottom 8
Yeah.
team, I think.
Yeah, completely confusing.
I'm not
how-
worried. I'm too worried about, obviously we're going to do the whole prediction, so I'm not worried about results in terms of this show. It's just more impressions of what might change, yeah. They could easily, though, not do any of that and run 14th again.
Yeah, I think they're around where they will be,
Yeah.
where they were last year.
Yeah. Sorry, Barney.
All depends on their energy and the way that they come out. The way they started last season was a big reason why they ended up where they did. Started really flat. I don't know if they just expected to turn up and win at the start of the year or what it was, but there was a lot of players that just didn't seem to be hitting anywhere near the marks that they came through with the year before. And obviously, fantastic year the season before, and then they went a long way backwards last year. So there's definitely a lot of ground that they need to make back up on what they did
They're so interesting in
the
that
season before.
what happened was last year, 2 years ago, Todd Payton gassed them up to the gills, got them going, came out, blew everyone away for ages, gassed out at the end. I used gassed twice in one paragraph there,
did.
but ran out of fuel in the end. They then came back this year, and Todd tried to be soft, regretted it 6 rounds in, said, I've been too soft. So this is the big year to go, okay, Mr. Payton, what balance are you going to find here? The problem is you're now 3 years in, your halfback's nearly 40, your best forward, arguably best forward's, in 7 years into a 10-year
contract,
$1 million a year deal. Your only strike weapon's your fullback.
You got
what's
Nanai
changing?
there. You got
And they missed a lot. And in fairness, the two back
Val
rowers missed
Holmes.
a bunch of time with injury.
Mm-hmm.
Val did indeed crack out something over Christmas or just after. But yeah, what does it all mean? I don't know. It's another interesting one for our preview show.
In 2022, they listened to their yogi coach or whatever it was enough. 2023, they didn't. Hopefully, they do in 2024.
How simple as that?
Apparently, yeah.
bare bones of a very strong football team. It's how they all, it comes down to how they put it all together. For mine, the biggest question mark is whether they see Dearden as a long-term 7 or if they're going to play him at 6 and go looking for another 7 in the future. I'd probably be leaning towards him being a 7, and that, for mine, would lead to Chad Townsend probably being pushed out by the end of this season, and then setting up for Dearden going forward.
Yeah.
But
no, 6 is easy. A 6 and I don't mean flippantly, but a 6 and a 1 are easy to find.
Easier to find than a 7. Yeah, absolutely. Dearden has the kicking game. He does have the running game, but if that has to take a back seat to some ball playing, then so be it. I think he's probably one of the players that has more of a future being a 7 than a lot of blokes that you see running around in the 7 at the moment. So
I'd agree with that. And I think that's if you're Todd Payton, you're having that conversation with Chad now and saying, look, great you're here. You got an assistant coach job with Jimmy for the next few years. Once you're done, we're transitioning this year by round 15. Tommy's in charge, and then you will be where
you'll kick, you take a back seat.
Wherever it has to be.
He comes in wherever he wants to be.
Yeah. And whether Drinkwater becomes a 6, whether he doesn't, is what happens next.
I think that's a natural progression, and then whether Val goes back to 1 or they find another 1, but that would be the natural progression for mine for the Cowboys.
Yeah, Dearden and Drinkwater becomes quite a good half combination, really, in a world of not many. Sharkies up next, and the fantastic news, Barney got his early Christmas present with the signing of Adam Fanua-Blake from 2025 on a 4-year deal, which would just about see him out. It's exactly what they wanted, Barn.
If only it was this year.
How happy were you? Well, yeah. How happy were you, and what does it mean for the Sharkies?
Well, for mine, it was the way that it happened was made me more happy than anything else. There was no talk of it in the media. There was a little bit of a ruction as soon as it first came up that Fanua-Blake wanted out, but then it all went quiet. There was no talks of him ever going to the Sharks at all. They kept it all in-house. Obviously, the deals were done in the back rooms, and there was no leaks coming out of the club. So,
Isn't it incredible what happens when there's no leaks around?
To me, that just seems that there's a very settled structure within the Sharks, and they've got a definite plan on where they're going. You've seen with their recruitment in the last 2 years, they don't just go out and buy 7 utilities. They go and try to find a piece that they need, and that's all they bring in. They brought in one bloke last year who didn't probably go as good as we thought he might, but he's still there, and that's another forward in that system that they need. And Fanua-Blake in the following season, as long as he's still staying fit and playing somewhere near what we've seen out of him in the last 2 years, could push the Sharks into a position of being a dominant team that can get on the front foot through the middle, which has been probably their biggest issue in games that they've lost in the last 2 years. So.
All the talk was of him going to the quote unquote
Dragons,
little brother of the Sharks. It's one of those things where it's like the little brother, you've already pushed him down once. He's slowly trying to get back up the puck, and you just get your foot and you kick him in the ass. That's
Well,
what
and the
that
other one was that there was a deal on the table from the Tigers, and Richardson came in and said,
No, taking it off.
"Don't worry about that."
Give it to Luai.
Apparently
Which was the Fulton related, manager.
There was a Dogs deal apparently tabled. Same with the Dragons, and I think there was also another team that had.
There was another mystery team.
There
that
was
never
another
declared,
team
but
that had a contract on the table, but
Newtown.
as I said, the way that it was done for mine just speaks volumes about the way the club's been run at the moment.
for a change from what it's been for a long time.
Well, how often do you hear a signing come through that hasn't been speculated and been spoken about for weeks and weeks in the media, and it just doesn't happen.
Well,
So
it seems like the way it was kind of built was that all these other teams were going in for him, and sort of last minute Cronulla went, oh yeah, well, oh shit, he's accepted. Cool. If you literally go off the
Look
media,
at it from
all
the
these clubs
outside,
were rumoured,
yeah.
and it just seems like Cronulla came in last minute, like, yeah, we'll have a crack. Oh, we got him.
But it's something I've said for the last 2 years that they absolutely need a dominant prop in the middle of that pack, someone that
Especially one that can
get
play
them on the
ball as
front
well.
foot constantly, is a running threat, does have an offload. It can't be a bad thing. There's a couple of blokes in that forward pack that need to be a bit more consistent in their efforts, in the likes of Ueli and Rudolph, but on their day, they're as good as as the majority of the props running around. So for mine,
suddenly
it's a
this year, they're now
fantastic
playing for a
signing.
job.
So
So you'll see something out of them this year, surely.
you would think so.
Plus Hazelton. They also picked up Michael Gabriel from the Bulldogs, who I guess is a Spruik junior, but we don't know what we're going to say. Don't know a lot about him.
Apparently very quick. There's one highlight of him scoring a try in a trial match or something against Parramatta, but
I think he's a Wenty junior.
yeah.
Something. Anyway, I think Parramatta come Bulldogs come Sharks.
Seems to have the physical attributes to be a decent centre. Probably doesn't get a start in the next 12 to 18 months, depending on what's happening there. But you got the likes of.
Well, speculation. I know. We're suddenly in a world where I guess Dykes is back.
Yes.
Iro, and your other centre, Ramian, all of a sudden, Ramian's going to be there.
Ramian
All of a sudden,
will
you've
be
got
there.
two blokes putting pressure on Talakai, and I guess
Yes.
they've got to make that call where he becomes the other middle forward.
I just don't know how it hasn't happened yet.
I think
Seriously.
that it feels like the
As you
jungle
said,
drums have beat him.
You said about the Tigers. To me, he just seems like the perfect 20, 30-minute bloke to come off the bench and just run as hard as he can through the middle of the field.
Yeah.
Put another centre in there with a bit of footwork, speed. Just adds a little bit more to the attack when the ball does get wide. And Talakai goes back into the middle, which is what the Sharks absolutely need. They need someone who just gets on the front foot and barges through the middle of the field, which is basically all he does as a centre anyway. Except for occasionally ragdolling his opposition centre and running over top of him, scoring a try.
Exactly.
But you can get a young kid to do the exact same thing, or beat someone with footwork and speed.
If not more so, exactly. Joey Alchin, who's been on the show, host of the Tripod, was it the Ruck Infringement podcast?
The Ruck
it's a
Inf- And I see this
TRI.
bloke way too often for him to be asking these type of questions.
How can the Sharks turn around their tag of being flat track bullies, Oliver?
How?
I suggest by
Finals
beating top four
chokers.
tems would be the way to do
Well,
it.
that's the way to do it. But I
Finals
also
chokers
think
I think was he said, wasn't it?
flat track bullies.
I thought he said final chokers.
Mate, that's your
bullies,
head, bro,
yeah.
not me.
But honestly, it's off the back of what Barney said. The only thing that the Sharks really need is sort of a bigger, more powerful forward pack. And again, they've in the past couple of years, they've been one of, if not the best defensive team in the comp. They've had an exhilarating back five that
Can score
they've
points.
got can score points. They've got the X factor. Their halfback has been the best player in the comp for a season before. They've got all the tools, as they say, probably apart from that sort of big, imposing four pack. I think that's about it. And again, it comes with time, beating those sort of better teams. Like usually when a team sort of first comes into being a top 8 team, it takes a little bit of time to start beating those experienced teams. But they're just about there now. They got back into the finals in 2022 after that year out in 2021, and they've sort of rebuilt the side a bit. I think we're getting closer to that, but they just do need that 4-pack, and then I think they can compete with the best teams in the competition.
For mine, they need another option in the halves. You've seen
Well,
what Nico's
they have
done in
made
the
the
2
call.
years that he's
They've
come.
made the call on Moylan now, so they're
Yeah.
they're looking. And Fitzgibbon's an idiot. They've found a pillar for 2025. Now I'm sure this will be the next.
And Trindle,
protocol.
is bits and pieces. He has very, very good games that he plays. But there's also 3 out of those 5 games where he's muck average and is missing tackles and making errors. So, Nicho Hynes has been brilliant in the 2 years that he's been there, gone from fullback to halfback and been close to one, been up in the conversation of the top couple of halfbacks running around on the field. But he doesn't have a foil, and you saw that at the end, halfway through last year when Moylan was on the outer and Trindle sort of didn't find his feet when he first came in. It's easy. You just shoot up on Nicho, take as much time out of his hands as possible, and then the options are very limited once it's either a kick for a corner or try a quick spread to try and get to the outside edges. And there's no other option, no other playmaking option on his inside. So
Does the
for
future
mine, they
lane
need to
Nicho at
find
6?
another ball player. I think it does, but
I think Trindle at 7's
I've
more
always
settled.
thought Trindle was a better 7
And
than
then
a
Nicho
6.
at first receiver opens up that running game.
Gives him a bit more space. He gets the ball that little bit deeper, a little bit more time, and options to get on the outside of players. And he can come in to the 7 and take it when he wants to, but I think he just likes his hands on the ball too much, to be honest.
And 2 years in, when you're the man, it's hard to then not be the man, I suppose.
Yeah.
But you've covered it really. I think they're the 2 things. Yeah, another key half. I think they're on the right. If they move Talakai to the middle, and that pillar which they've got now in 2025.
Trindle has a nice short kicking game, and his cutout pass is quite good, but he just doesn't seem to have the touch on those deft inside balls and short passes to put guys through holes when he's close to the line.
Yeah.
Which is something that I think
He almost relies
they're
on the kicking
looking
game
for.
more than the short pass, but
Yeah.
where he's product of what's around him.
And I think if they could find someone that just could unlock an edge a little bit more, it'd make a bigger difference. So,
You're thirsty and you keep going.
yeah, I might grab one.
We got the Dragons up next, which certainly some things going on here. They've re-signed Moses Sully for 3 years. They've added Ronald Volkman to their squad for next year. They're released by the Warriors. They've signed Corey Allen for a year from the Chooks. They lost, obviously, Talatai Mona, who his contract was deregistered. Tom Eisenhuth from the Storm coming for a year. The proliferation of so many one-year contracts, so when I was looking through what they've done this year, suggests Flanagan's sort of going to take a year, get his feet under the table, and next year they're going to really have a crack at trying to land some players, trying to land some big fish. And it's an interesting year, and I suggested they probably run last. They've got the same concerns they've always had. They don't have a
Flanagan
great.
end up there as well?
Yes, Cole was there,
boys
but I think that was
came
before the
across
fact.
as
So
well.
yeah, obviously Cole. When we do the full preview, I'll read all the ins and outs. But this is what's happened since the last time we did a show. Cole's there. So you're looking at, I guess, Kyle Ben Hunt combination or Kyle Volkman combination, or
It'd be Ben Hunt and one of the other two, I would
Cole
imagine.
might play hooker.
A lot of talk of that, yeah. And
He
Volkman
was
into
good.
6.
And Volkman to 6, and then you find either hopefully Cody Ramsey's back for his own health and everything else, but then you worry about who you fall back. You got Sloan there, I think this is this is for them. They're just putting up the scaffolding and trying to hold on for a year and seeing what comes, because they don't have a massive forward pack. They've got talent. A lot of the young blokes that finally got a game after Flanagan asked them to were quite good. So we'll learn a lot. What are we going to say about these Dragons?
They should let Ben Hunt go to the Titans immediately and focus on the next generation combination of Ronald Volkman and Cole Flanagan.
Barney? I'm
But
glad we got you back, Ollie, because so far you've added.
both of those
Something about
options
some
in the
kits
halves,
and,
Volkman and Flanagan both offer a little bit more structure, especially around a kicking game, whereas the Hunt's not now the only real option that they have with a kicking game, so they can find someone else to take a bit of pressure off him there, whether that opens up a bit more of his being able to structure the ball playing in and around that. They're another team that just needs to find someone to get them on the front foot. They had, I think he ended up their captain there at the back end of last year, the
Laurie.
front rower, Blake Laurie, who's an absolute workhorse and busts his ass week in, week out. Jack DeBellin did quite a good job there last year.
Well, and essentially ended up being the other pillar. Ended up being the other pillar.
Yeah, and there was a couple of young fellas that sort of stamped themselves as prospects coming into this year, but I don't know how far they can build from where they were last year. I think they probably even go backwards, to be honest.
They'd have to unearth some genuine talent to be any different.
Yeah.
They compete, though. They did compete last year.
They did for a lot of games.
I'm sure, and Flanagan will have them competing this year. And
he'll probably get them fitter than they've been for a long time.
They'll be the ones that lose a lot of games by 6 or 8 points. And go, if they just had a bit of luck or this, that, and the other. But we know the bottom 8 teams don't get much luck.
They really need a hooker for mine.
That's where Flanagan's going, I'd say. I think for that reason.
They really need to find someone that can help them get on the front foot and provide a bit better ball to their halves. Because there was times there where the Hunt would get the ball and get absolutely belted off a loopy shit pass from dummy half, and
Please forgive me. Who was their hooker last year? I can't.
Wasn't it Jacob Little?
Yeah, it was.
and still is.
Good running hooker.
Yeah. But that's
He was
also
injured free, but Bud Sullivan played a bit.
But that also relies on a good running hooker. Relies on your front rowers getting on the front foot and opening up holes and opportunities in and behind the ruck.
Yeah.
And if it's not happening, then there's no way that a running hooker is going to be any help. You need someone who's going to be able to turn a game with a 40-20 and a kick from dummy half, or provide that brilliant cutout ball to Hunt, and then he's got his outside backs in space.
Gives him 2-on-1 somewhere. Yeah.
Which I'm not sure they've got in that position. So
Nothing else on that.
Oh, well, I know Barney mentioned him, but honestly, Blake Laurie, right? You can talk about Ben Hunt as much as you want, letting him go and off to better things. Everyone already knows how good Ben Hunt was. If Blake Laurie was at 15, 16 other clubs, people would be talking about him in a much different light. Like, he'd have a lot more positive attention on him than he does at the Dragons, because just no one really cares enough to... But
would he?
Yes, he would, in a better team.
Well, so what's he going to do at Penrith? Play 25?
Well, okay, not Penrith, but
like
the
it's
Titans.
Easy to say. He tries his
but
ass
no,
off.
but like,
but he's not going to make.
He's
the
aggressive,
case.
he works.
I would say this:
Yeah.
if you, and again, this is hypothetical. If you took him, the role he plays right now for the Dragons, and put him in the exact role he plays for the Dragons in a better team, his contributions would be much more appreciated.
Alex File's a better player. There you go. There's
I'm
my
not saying he's
statement
not.
for that.
But
No, I know, but it's like, what's it all mean?
No, I just think good on Blake Laurie. He deserves better.
Tries his ass off.
Yeah.
And when he retires, he can be one of our co-hosts because I think he's awesome. But
I
Dead
reckon
Set looks like Kevin Owens, and
by the looks of it, he'll probably get a gig on the Matty John show, you'd reckon.
I think he will.
More
And
than
more
likely.
power
Yeah,
to him.
with
Absolutely he will.
Yeah.
Very funny fella.
Absolutely. Well, then does Lomax end up at 1? I guess he's got to
He
play 1.
ends
He
up
has
on
to play 1.
at
No,
Fletcher
well,
90
now
as
you
well.
mentioned them, but Lomax has to play 1 or 6 if they're going to have anything this year.
Well, not only just for
I'd
the
be very
Dragons,
surprised if Flanagan doesn't have him at 1.
but
Yeah. I think he's on record as saying as much.
I think it's at the point now as well for Lomax where he's had all this hype and stuff. Like, you kind of can't keep him in this. You've got to see if he can actually sink or swim in
I
a
think so.
quote-unquote
At least
big
try it.
position.
Try it.
And then
Yeah.
that gets rid of that stupid flick
Yeah.
pass as well.
Yeah.
If he's playing fullback, you can't
But
be
he has
throwing
to,
that
then
flick
he
pass.
has to work his ass off.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But to your point, would Blake Laurie be fantastic at Melbourne? Yes, he would.
Melbourne would probably
Would he
be
be fantastic in a few other clubs? I don't think he'd make the team, to be honest.
And I think Sloan would probably be a better fit in the centres, to be honest. And have Lomax at fullback.
Interesting year for Sloan. Interesting year for Sloan because it's a...
Also for
You'd
Lomax.
have to do some more work in defence, which
I
would be the
feel
big problem. But
I feel like Super League's calling.
yeah, quite possibly.
If they do play Lomax at fullback though, and like give him a year, it's kind of sink or swim at this point, isn't it?
For Lomax?
For in that because it's had all the hype for years.
He'll still get a job somewhere as a centre.
He will, but I mean at the Dragons, like sink or swim.
Yeah.
Like
it's such a weird one. And obviously, we're not privy to the inner workings, but it's almost like if he wanted to, he would already be doing it. I don't know. But
Flanagan
sometimes
does
in life, you
love.
need someone to come in and
Flanagan does love
get
that
you the
high
fuck out of your
pressure.
comfort
Yeah.
zone.
Yeah, he just throws pressure at players,
either
and
you're doing this or
you
I'm
come or
picking
you
out.
don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
And plays Bloom under it. So
They might also have been
Interesting.
paying him enough because I take it he's on a fair bit at the Dragons. He might not care where they play him. Like
that's right. So
he's
it's
making
time
his money,
to-
so he needs someone to be like,
Something's
all right,
coming up,
we're
yeah.
playing you here. Like
They run last. Penrith
16th.
Well, Panthers next. I had nothing for them. Everything seems to be floating along swimmingly, except they released Zach Hostings today to Canberra. So we may as well go straight to Canberra.
Right.
Or apart from obviously the Luai stuff, but he'll still be there next year. Are you right, Byron? Can you hear me?
All good.
So let's find the Raiders. Zach Hostings effective immediately to the Raiders. Fogarty signed an extension through 2026. Mariota and Michael Asumia have both done the same, and Hohepa Puru also extended for a couple of years. Closing up shop, doing well. You know, they've let Harley Smith Shields go to Titans. But apart from that, Hostings is a fantastic signing, and in a weird ass year when we do our Supercoach show, suddenly he becomes a very interesting Supercoach option. I don't know what he's worth. I'd have to go look, but he's someone that scores very well and may have dropped off of a few bench games at the back end of last year.
Does a lot of work and now opens up the right-hand edge of the Raiders where they were very flat last year. Apart from Tomoko was on the left, wasn't he? So there was very little coming out of their right-hand side for the Raiders. It was all based through the other back rower there, who absolutely killed it in the last 2 years. Hudson Young and Tomoko down that left-hand side, and now you get absolute workhorse. He's actually got a pretty decent offload and bit of ball playing skills as well. So that really does open up a channel there now for the Raiders that was part of my thinking that was going to be their biggest problem was their attack down an edge.
$511 in Supercoach. I think that's
And
almost
they'll go looking for him.
and they'll start him.
He'll start on that right edge,
Yep.
and it adds another addition to their attack. The halves are the big worry for mine, and the dummy half. Fogarty does a job, and he's been re-signed and had to be because they're really relying on him at the moment to basically be the guy that is their ball player. But for mine, there's not a lot of other ball playing going on there. You've got an offload.
Surely they run
you now
with,
have an offload on both edges, but there's
Surely they start running with Chris Sanders, who
still
was
a lot of issues in and around the
under-19
halves.
gun. You've signed to play centres, but they don't have a six. It was White in the first place.
They might need to start running with Chris Sandow pretty soon.
They went with old mate Schneider, and
coming
he
back, Ollie.
ended up. He's now at Penrith, and I thought he was the natural fit for mine, but he's now going to be back up at Penrith. So.
Very interesting. Once we start getting closer to trials, it's going to be super interesting what happens there.
Savage is a big question mark. Whether he
Well, they
finds
need
his
to find
way
fullback,
back into
don't
the
they?
side, whether because it was really funny that he was injured for a long time, but then
And
he
Seb
never
Chris.
never found his way back into that side either.
This
so.
is the year that we go, well, what the hell is Seb Chris?
Oh, he's a centre. The Savage for mine is a more natural fullback than
But
what
could
Chris
he be
is. But
they'll try and I reckon they'll try and manufacture him as a six
there's some
to
issues
start
there.
with,
Yeah.
and then they'll shit the bed 10 rounds in. And very interesting team, Canberra, this year. Eh?
I'm still pretty worried for Canberra, to be honest. I can see
They're going to
them.
be closer to the bottom
being-
four than
yeah.
anywhere else.
I've seen a lot of people are tipping them for the bottom four, and I don't think they're a bottom four team, but I feel like this year might be that year where, and you know what, if they end up finishing 8th, I wouldn't be surprised. But it looks like now with Canberra, it's to that point where they're going to kind of slip into the irrelevant zone of 11th to 13th. It kind of seems for me, at least for a year. Zach Hosking is a good signing, but I also think Canberra, like for the past few years, they've had
Forward pack's been okay.
They've had
Yeah.
a solid forward pack, and that's just going to add to the solid forward pack. But it's not necessarily signings where they need it.
There's talk KO
the
Weeks.
biggest
Sorry,
issues-
KO Weeks, they reckon, might play six as well.
That's the thing as well. I think there's no one who really, I think, jumps out and stands out as, even with debate, it's like, oh, this guy will probably be the 6. And a lot of them
Imagine
are
KO
very
Weeks getting, like,
inexperienced.
Living at Manly, on the beach every day, getting your car and driving to Canberra.
just ask
Living in
Albert,
like a
just
grey
ask Albert
apartment
Hopewadi
that's
how
just
that's
grey,
going.
where Canberra's just
Yeah.
grey.
And again, I think
He'd probably be their best option from what I've seen out of him. He's
play
got
anywhere,
he's got
absolutely,
the
I agree.
footwork. He's got a decent
Absolutely.
passing game, and he probably would be their best option at 6. But you look at it the last 3 or 4 years, their best option's been Whiten, and I'm not sure they've got a better option. Even though now Whiten's gone,
They will
and
think-
he's going to go play
I feel
centre
like
at Souths,
Ricky-
but I'm still not sure
yeah.
there's a
I
better
feel
ball
like
playing
Ricky
option.
loves
So-
Seb Chris. I can see Seb Chris starting at 6 in round 1.
I can't see his ball playing and handling it. I can understand him
I
running
know.
and
I
strength
would be looking
and
elsewhere,
palm
but
and all the rest of it. But
Ethan Strange got to be.
I
Sorry,
don't know
Sanders
what
was
he
there.
offers passing the ball.
Ethan Strange probably got to be the guy.
Just sign
Back a bloke.
sign cult hero Blake Austin out of retirement. He's
They
still
might.
playing on the entrance,
They
like
might well.
literally. But in all honesty,
There's a bold prediction.
Yeah.
He plays NRL by the end of this year.
for the Raiders. But the re-signing of Jamal Fogarty too, he's the kind of player who fits into sort of a weird category for me, because for a lot of players, they're either that really good, rare sort of halfback, game-controlling halfback, or they're a 5'8", where with Jamal Fogarty, I think he's definitely a halfback. He's a solid halfback, but
100%.
you wouldn't put him up with the upper echelon. Maybe if he had a solid 5'8" beside him to maybe give him a bit of breathing room, it does sort of improve that. But I think I'll say this as something that's a bit bold, especially with the 4-pack Canberra have. Jamal Fogarty will come close to Canberra's best player next year, I think.
Oh, yeah,
As long as he stays
I'd be
fit.
very
As long as he
surprised if
stays
he's not.
fit.
The games they won last year, he won them half of them.
Well, his running
Yeah.
game and his kicking game is right up there.
Yeah.
Like, it's in the talk of the top 4 or 5 players in and around those half positions.
Yep.
His biggest issue is his ball playing, and it was the same with Whiten, and they both had question marks around their ball playing, and that was generally when they got beaten. Even if they were dominant in the forwards, it was because they couldn't create enough points.
Yeah.
And that, for
They're
mine,
an
is still the
18-point team
question.
that either defended 18 or somehow fluked 28 and held on. And if they defended 8, or even if you look at and just going back to the Tigers, the 2 Tigers games were on the back of Fogarty.
And I've
kicking
still
at
got question
posts and,
marks
you know.
about their defence on their outside edges. So if they're conceding more than 12 to 18 points a game, they're probably going to lose more than they're going to win.
Yeah,
So.
yeah. We get to the Chooks next as my page refreshes. And the exciting thing for the Chooks is that Dom Young got a new car. Who'd have thought?
A Land Rover.
A Land Rover. Who'd have imagined?
The
Do you
old-
want to know the crazy thing about that
$5,000
signing?
car.
I'm pretty sure, like, I know the photo came out of him today in the Roosters gear at
Yeah, it
Allianz,
did.
so he's obviously signed, but I haven't seen the Roosters officially announce that they've signed him. Usually the clubs put out a statement. They eventually did with Spencer Leniu,
No,
because I
it's
remember...
it's
They
out.
did it
Because
last year.
Their
Didn't they?
website, and
I was gonna-
I bagged the dogs, but the Roosters website's really good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
it is
well,
quite good.
because I
I mean,
don't
they're all
remember
similar. They're
seeing
all
it.
just
Yeah,
story fucking team list, but it's
I-
something different.
yeah,
there.
'cause I
Them
just-
and Souths were something different.
I
so.
just remember, like, it got to a point last year, and I think there was even a news article about it. It's like worrying signs over the Roosters not officially announcing Leniu or Young yet, because Penrith and Newcastle both announced that they were leaving and going to a different club. But I don't
Lenny's
remember
already
ever
been
seeing...
sent to Vegas, so we know that's
Yeah,
happening.
oh, no. Well, I think the Roosters ended up announcing that, but I saw the
Maybe
photo
they
of Dom
just
Young
don't
today.
give a fuck
and
that much that
maybe
they're just
well,
like,
you know what?
we've got
maybe,
everyone, we're that good, fuck yourself.
Maybe it's the goddamn social media era. We're all sitting on Facebook waiting for a team to announce something, and maybe they just don't have to.
They don't
Maybe
care. We don't
maybe
care.
You tell me,
maybe
bro.
Dom Young,
Mr. 10,000 followers, you tell
maybe
me.
Dom Young can show
How
up
does this work?
in Vegas.
We're going to put a jersey
at the
on this
start of
bloke
March
and he's going to run out.
And it's like,
it'll
oh,
be fine.
he's playing for this team. You know what? I want to see that happen. I want to see that happen for a team next year.
Just not
Don't
announce
just
anything.
don't announce it at all. The team that he's leaving, don't
He just
announce
runs
anything.
out.
Well,
There
even
could be
with Hoskins-
speculation. It's
even
like,
with
will he
Hoskins
show
today,
up? Will he not?
Penrith put a statement saying yes, he's going, but
Cleary
there's
just
not a
runs
single
out in a
mention.
Tigers jersey.
I had to go look and go, what is happening?
Yeah.
And it's
I-
just
I-
they
yeah,
never
I-
say. Even with Lua,
Yeah.
they don't go. The press release just said thanks, Jerome. It's great.
Yeah.
There was never a he's
Yeah,
going
because
to
I
the
heard
Tigers.
a week ago, Ricky said, "Oh, we spoke to Hoskins, but he's not coming this year. It's all about next year." Blah blah blah. And then today, Penrith's released
Yeah.
him, and I'm like, "Okay, I guess he's going to the Raiders."
Could you
I think if you're
imagine-
Penrith, like their depths must be so great, like great. Like you've got Mav Guy up your sleeve. You've got blokes like that. You got blokes we haven't even talked about. Tyrone May, who didn't play for a year, coming back. You got. They don't give a shit if people go. It's still be good next year.
Well, like, could you
We
imagine?
haven't talked
Right,
about Penrith. I'm sure they'd probably give a shit if Nathan left, but
well,
Yes, yes, they would.
my last thing, imagine like the whole Jerome Luai situation, just a speculation for a year, and then in round 1, 2025, he just walks out on the field in the Tigers jersey.
yeah.
Penrith
my
would
God.
have
That's what-
Penrith would have
but-
20 back rowers in the juniors that
Yeah.
could just be plugged into first grade.
Absolutely.
Guaranteed.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
And they've probably got 4 or 5 eights and 3 hookers and outside backs up the wazoo because one of them's gone to the Dolphins. But to your point, I remember 15 years ago, you'd just turn on round 1 at NRL on Channel 9
Yeah.
before social media in it.
Yeah.
And I was like, why is Mark Carroll playing for South? What is this? What
What the hell?
It used to happen
Yeah.
more. And it's like, these days,
Bring it
you
back.
can't fucking
Bring it back.
take a shit without someone telling you.
But anyway, what do we got for the rest of this?
They say Dom Young got a Land Rover. Good on
He
him.
did.
Nafahu White's is signed a tier extension. They've shored
Good
up the
signing.
ranks. Tupanua, Nat Butcher, both 3-year extensions. Sanders Smith, 2 years. Sia Wong, 2 years. Billy Smith, and 1 year. And Connor Watson has signed a tier extension, which for Connor, who only plays about 3 games every year, it's fantastic for him. And they signed the Wallaby player, Mark Nawakatawazi, who's going to torment me for the next 3 years of this show.
Is that for this year or?
2025. But they've just shored up their ranks. Interesting. I guess the question would be what happens with Guzzi Crichton, who's still on a big contract, but it's his last year. Maybe they'll just cop it.
Looks like he's on the outer to me.
I'll take him. But who knows, he might go to rugby. Yeah, they've just shored it all up. We don't have much to say. Sanders Smith, I suppose, is going to be the long-term prospect once Kiri goes.
And
You
then
would
we
think
can,
so.
and then we can get Sandon to Brandon.
We can get Sanders to
Oh,
Brandon.
it'd be the other way around, wouldn't it? Brandon
Brandon
to
to
Sandon.
Sandon.
But as usual, Chook's closed ranks, doing a good job. Signed him up. Every single person I just mentioned there is a very good footballer. And they're going to be up and punching when the time comes.
I think 2022, we all pretty much predicted them to win the premiership, if not make the top 4. Last year, they were one of the favourites in general to make the top 4 and win the premiership. I think this is the year where they kind of got to make the top 4.
I think
that's the
they'd
way
be
I see
disappointed
it.
if they didn't.
But this-
And if
yeah.
they don't, if they run 12th this year,
Oh, well, 12. Robbo's gone.
I wouldn't say Robbo's gone, but I tell you what, the fullback might suddenly be
And the halfback.
under the...
Back to his former club.
For mine, the big worry is the two that you just mentioned, Kiri and Tedesco. Tedesco's still going to provide more than enough opportunities given the right time and space, as I like to say. But he wasn't afforded that a lot last
No.
year.
He was cornered and yeah.
They seem to do enough in the middle of the field, but the
There's
ball
a very,
for
very
mine
easy,
just
sorry,
went
off, but there's a
sideways
very,
way
very
too
easy
quickly.
barometer when Roosters are playing well or they're not. When Tedesco's getting tackled in the corner on tackle 3, 4, 5, they're not playing well.
Mm-hmm.
When he's not, they are playing well. That's all you have to look for.
And it was really strange the way that they went around with the young halfback and had him in and out of the team. And as soon as he came back, they straightened up and they looked like a much better football team. There was more opportunities being created in and around the ruck there, off the back of the hooker, and just providing more time for Kiri to be able to get the ball to the outside backs. And I don't know if that's a personal issue between the coach and the halfback, or whether they're going to sit and stick with him this year. Or
I swear
for
Sam
mine,
Walker...
the big issue is what they do with their halves going through the season.
I
So-
swear he'd only had 2 or 3 bad games as well at the start
He'd
of the
only had
season.
one,
and
I'm pretty
and-
sure.
and
There was one where
they
he threw a
dropped him
few
in round
rainbow balls
7.
into touch and stuff.
Yeah.
And that was,
Missed a couple of
that was it.
tackles, and then he was shunted from the team for 10 or 12 weeks, and that was when they didn't look like the same Roosters team.
yeah.
Um,
I feel like he needs to be a dominant. I mean, he's 20, but he needs to be a dominant player to be the best he can be.
But, it's nearly gotten to that point now where he's been in the league for 3, 4
Exactly.
years. Like,
As I say
yeah.
a lot, like he's exposed. Like you know what you get. It's He can get stronger and bigger, and tackle busting isn't his forte, but I think he's still got some growing to do.
Brandon absolutely came alive at the back end of the year. He was quite poor at the start of the year, which obviously didn't help the halves either. But if they get the combinations right in the middle of the field with the 9, 7, 6, and 1, then they'll be competitive and probably beat the majority of teams. But if you see a few of those signs that we saw out of them through the middle of last year, they could be at the bottom of the 8 or miss it.
The thing is, it was sort of like the whole thing was that Cheese is going to go to Roosters last year and be missed 80 minutes, and then it was almost at the back end proven that he has to be the player he was at Melbourne. Mm-hmm. Almost like Bellamy has half a clue. But then they've released Drew Hutchinson, who was one of the hookers. They've released Jake Turpin. So they obviously chips in that Sandon's going to be 14 for a bit, and then either 9 or 7, or however it might work, or 6, which is fine. And when you got Joey Martin up your sleeve, if someone gets injured, they can play half and everything else. But yeah, it seems sort of a declaration that, hey, we're going to play this standard of football. I think you got to get back to Cheese plays 55, and then something else happens.
You got Radley in the middle, and the big guys causing some big problems. And the likes of White and May were really getting a roll on at the back end of the year, and that's why they really picked up their game. But for mine, the big indicator is going to be Keary.
Yep.
In the first 6 to 10 weeks of how the Roosters are going to go. Because there's a lot of pressure on him, and for mine, he's gone backwards the last couple of years.
Yeah. The couple of games they did win at the back end, he was fantastic. He was really fantastic. No, but the
he's
key
got a
about
brilliant
that was,
game of footy in
but
him.
as everything, it was almost like when he was a lone soldier. Yeah, this is when he played his best. Anything else?
No.
Bronx, grand finalist last year. I guess the biggest news is they released Kurt Capel, going the Warriors. There's no a whole bunch of other news out of there.
And Herbie.
That was
but that was
happening.
previous, yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that. But yes, no Capel, no Herbie, no Flegler, who both came out and had a bit of a crack. Not so much a crack, but
Flegler's a big one for mine.
But all of a sudden, it's easy to say, oh, they'll be better this year, but I don't think they will. Really looking forward to our long-term chat now. I'm 27 beers deep, and looking forward to finishing at 3 a.m. But
how do you feel about that, Barney?
He'll be
we'll
fine.
Get through it.
We'll soldier through. We've done it for 4 years now. It's actually It's actually a
Your camera's dead.
You know it's a good night. All right, Barn, sorry. We have replaced the camera. We're back to shitty definition, but here we are, back to the old faithful. Yeah, Broncos.
Yeah, you were saying you're not quite sure they're going to be better than what they were last year.
Well, I guess the news out today is that what is happening here?
The alarm's gone off again.
There it is. All right, bloody. You know any auto electricians or what? Oh, you sorted it out for it.
Connected the wrong wire.
He's out injured at the moment, though. He can't do anything.
Yeah. Living the dream. It's Cobbo's playing centre. Mm-hmm. Here's a suggestion. I guess Palacia's got first crack at back row now.
You would assume so. Yeah.
You got Willison there, but Flegler is a massive out. Like what? Yeah, what does?
Well, he was
this
that
year
glue
hold?
that kept that forward pack rolling. You know, when you had Carrigan and Haas both on the bench, he was the one that was taking up the fight in the middle of the field. And
yeah,
it's going to be. He's a big hole to fill. Whether there's a young fella coming through that nobody knows about and might be able to take up that role, but
I'm sure there is.
There's not. It takes props a fair while in their career to be able to be that enforcer type that can just take it on and get it done. Like that generally doesn't happen until they're 24, 25, 26. So unless you're paying Haas, you just destroy the competition.
Who's his,
but
no, the other fella, Corey Jensen did a good job for a smaller prop. So
yes, but
I'm sure they've got faith. They wouldn't just let forwards go for no reason.
I think you will find that there might be a slight drop off in that forward rotation going through the rest of the season. I think Herbie's a big loss as well.
Absolutely.
A lot of pace. You saw what he did last year. He was one of the better centres running around for the majority of the year, which is, another hole that they need to fill. They're going to be competitive. They're probably going to be better than 75% of the teams that are running around in the competition, but I'm not sure that they're the out-and-out second-best team in the comp like they were this year. So
no. Oh, they did re-sign it. Oh, well, the rumour is Ezra will re-sign.
Yeah, still yet to
But
re-sign,
still
which is
yet to
obviously
happen, which is always until the ink's on the contract. Always a little bit nervous, but they're quietly confident, and I think they're also assuming they're going to extend Reece Walsh.
I think they are one of two teams who can win the comp, and you wouldn't believe who the other one is. I don't think they've necessarily...
Titans?
Bulldogs.
Okay.
I don't think they've necessarily gotten better.
Some kids?
You're right. I just think even with the improvements other teams have made, I still see Penrith and Brisbane as that upper echelon because they've still got the key players. And
Yeah.
I've seen people say, well,
to agree.
I've seen a couple of people say even they've lost Herbie and Flegler, they'll struggle to make the 8. They've still
That's
got
nonsense.
Reece Walsh, Ezra Mam, Adam Reynolds, Payne
Cobbo.
Haas, Patrick Carrigan. Those players alone, you put any form of support there and they probably still can make the grand final. It's going to
And
be...
it wouldn't shock me in 12 months' time we see him go, Selwyn Cobbo's the best forward in the comp. The best
Centre
centre in the comp, sorry.
Yeah, and that's not to say that will happen and has to happen, but I just...
No,
I
but he
feel
go on
like...
his literal trajectory.
And Mariner did a good job filling in when he did have games
Fantastic
there.
winner, ready to, like,
He'll
gun
come straight into
winger
the
ready
side.
to go.
Yeah, absolutely. I expect Ezra Mam to probably improve on what he produced last year, and Reece Walsh. I'd be very surprised if he doesn't improve again on what he was showing.
Well, I feel like
last
they will
year,
both.
so-
They're both a year in for that combination. Now they get their game.
Yeah.
Ezra only peaked in the grand final. He'll know he can just cruise off Reynolds or whatever it have to be, and
You got Walsh floating around out the back.
tremendous running game, both those two.
Oh yeah, and points points are premium for just about any team. Like if you can't put on 20 to 30 points, there's a good chance you're going to lose a lot of games. Football, and they don't have a problem putting on 20 to 30 points.
You've hit the nail on the head in that you know Brisbane and you know the good teams. Not always Penrith, but they do. And this year they still will. They can score 24, 28 points. And then there's 8 teams in the comp that can't unless you play badly.
Yep.
Including, arguably the Storm, including teams like that. So, anything else from Brisbane, though? Like a tremendous discussion that we'll have at 4 a.m. in a couple of weeks.
Be
about this
quite
team, I think.
interesting who takes Capewell's spot. I think there might actually be an improvement there because I thought he wasn't at his best last season for them. So
I think even...
And I think that's why they're just super happy to just go, you know what, we've got stock. We've got... Jensen didn't play the back end. Palacia didn't play a lot. Willison didn't play a lot. Hetherington didn't, they're all sharing spots. Now they're just like, here they are. We trust our boys.
I think Walsh, Reynolds and Haas playing as good as they were last year alone probably just about guarantees them top 4. Anything above that is just going to push them further. So that's where I sort of see it. Again, overall, I'd say Brisbane's drop-off, I think, has not been as bad as other teams' improvement. I still think Brisbane are probably either equal to or just above pretty much every other team in the comp other than one.
The other thing about Capel, if they really need to, they've got the best second rower in the comp in Pat Carrigan. So they really have to. They just put Carrigan to an edge and work backwards. But the extension of Capel is he's going to the Warriors, who have let Curran go. They've got Fanil Blake for 1 more year. They've extended Tohu for 2 years. What's he now, 34, 35? The tribal chief will still be around bringing me unbridled joy for the next 2 years. And they've extended DWZ, Jackson Ford, who was only there on a short-term deal, and absolutely earning stripes, and Rocco Berry all extended as well. So again, they've shored up the ranks. Cool.
Roger.
And they've got RTS.
Yeah.
We know RTS.
Yeah.
We know Chanel's back. We know the actual analysis of that squad is going to be super interesting when we get to it in a few weeks' time. But in terms of the short-term news, mate, Tohu is walking around with one lung and half a knee, and
He's still
He's
one of the
just
best
the
players in the
greatest.
comp.
Still
just-
putting plenty out there.
had he not loved the bloke, and they've backed him to be that guy. And they've obviously let Volkman go, but they've got plenty of artillery up their sleeve.
Especially with Chanel coming back. That was a big reason, I think, that they did let Volkman go.
Absolutely.
Um,
And in fairness to both parties as well, though, because they've still got
absolutely.
Metcalf there and Tamari. So a lot going on. Great, good-looking squad if they repeat what they did. Confidence is a beautiful thing.
Yeah, I can see them putting in a very similar season to last year, and if they can get a little bit extra out of a few of those, I think Roger may take him 6 to 8 weeks to get fully back into the groove of things, but that was one of their biggest problems last year was the attack on the edges in the centres and defence there also. And Roger's never been a bad defender, and he adds a hell of a lot in attack. So I can actually, I'd be very surprised if they don't go even closer than what they did last year. So.
I see next season maybe being the wake-up call year for the Warriors. I'm not saying they missed the 8 or anything. I can see them dropping out of the top 4 I can see a first half of the season sort of complacency maybe even, or sort of a new expectation. They've got the pressure now to perform. RTS is back. And I think throughout the entire year, RTS will be, at the very least, solid. I just think, and we've seen it with teams in the past where they'll have
I cannot possibly imagine us sitting here and saying, well, he's solid for RTS.
I said it, but like you know,
I know
with him
saying,
coming back,
saying,
people are sort of
yeah,
like, "What's he?" I think he'll be fine.
He will be fine.
I just think with the Warriors themselves, I think after last year, it was the big Cinderella story. They're high on it. I think they might be brought back down to earth I wouldn't be surprised if within the first 10 rounds of the season they're sitting 8th or 9th. But I feel like they finish in your 5th or 6th position. And I think over the next couple of years, like I'm predicting in 2025, they'll be back in the top 4 probably. I just think this might be the year where they're sort of brought back down a little bit. They sort of reassess, and for the long run, it's necessary. I also say that as well because I feel like the Roosters have improved. Melbourne are probably still around the same. You've got your Cronulla are even a team that could jump up a little bit. South Sydney could be back in the fold. I just think with those variables, I do think the Warriors come back down a little bit because I feel like that complacency factor might get them in the first 10 rounds of the season. But I wouldn't be surprised if heading into the finals, they're the hottest team in the comp kind of thing. And I think they will finish probably around your 5th, 6th position. Again, nothing trying to drag the Warriors down or anything over the next couple of years. I think they could come close to winning their first premiership. But I feel like this might be the year where they it's that come down, at least for the first 10 rounds, and that might affect them at the end of the year and might cost them a top 4 spot.
I think
if they'll be safe in the top 8.
If Johnson and Egan hold their form, I think they go very close to being
and if Egan stays
a premiership
fit,
year for them.
If Egan stays fit, like generally a top 4 hooker, top 3 or 4 hooker, and he just hasn't had a clear run.
I think a lot relies on that 9, 7, and 1 chance. If you can produce the same output as last year, and Johnson and Egan, I think they're better than 85% of the teams running around. So.
Dolphins are next on my list. The only news I've really got is that Junior Tupou has agreed to 2025 to go up there and be another outside back. Good signing. Work in progress, but a very, very talented outside back. And obviously the news has come out that Flegler's ready and ripping to go, and Herbie's up there, and Avarillo's up there, and cool. They've got pace now, but do we really need to spend a lot of time on them?
Got some more pace. Just for mine, I think the next 12 to 18 months, they just really need to focus on replenishing the forward stocks that obviously are going to be on their way out in the next 12 months. So bare bones of a very good athletic squad that could push a lot of teams, and I'd be surprised if they're not around the 8.
Para. Again, not a lot of news. They've shored up their ranks. They're just business as usual. Para, Steve Georgalis has been named as the NRLW coach for him. So, very good signing. Very astute coach. Former Penrith coach. I guess former Dogs coach.
He was
very
interim coach there for a little bit, wasn't he? When one of them got sacked, and I think he did a good job.
Back in the not glory days of Penrith, he came in when one of them got sacked and won 4 or 5 straight.
Hook got sacked? Yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, but it was either Hook or one of them. But yeah, not much going on at Para. They're business as usual. Titans.
They're honestly, not to be the pessimist that I am, a little
We're
while.
not even going to mention Parramatta at all.
My bold
There's not much to talk about. Like
yeah.
we've got a full season preview coming up. This is supposed to be a news show.
My bold prediction for the Titans was top 8, but they're probably going to be in that irrelevant zone. They could finish bottom 4. I'm not tipping them to, but I think they're just going to be milling around in that sort of middle zone where they'll win 8 games and lose the rest of them. And probably.
So is there any recent signings
for Titans?
Yeah.
Harley Smith-Shields.
Harley Smith-Shields is the only off-season signing, and Beau Fermor has been cleared to have a full pre-season. So Beau's back, which is
if he's back,
forgotten name, and that's fantastic.
Yeah,
really good.
If he is back to as good as he was when he got injured, then that's a huge in. That's nearly a new signing.
That's a new signing, absolutely, and that's why I mentioned it. But again, and Desi's up there, but there's not a lot of news out. The whole idea of this show, we're an hour and a half in, is to touch on news because
Desi's going to be interesting. There's
they're going to that will
going to be
become
some good press
they're going to
conferences
become
coming out of
they
Desi.
become a grinding team, and they've got a very good grinding forward pack.
Oh, don't they?
I don't think it necessarily needs to be a grinding forward pack, but that's what Desi's going to make it. And I really like. Don't get me wrong, Para. I really am excited to talk about Dolphins Para, and for fans, yeah, we're not just brushing him. I'm really excited to talk about Dolphins Para Titans in our preview, but there's no real need to try and crap on about shit that doesn't matter just yet because we're going to talk about it again in 2 weeks' time.
Titans at their best have one of the best forward packs going around, and just what they can put in behind those guys when they start breaking open the middle of the field. We saw last year that there was some issues in and around the ball playing, and especially their kicking game. I thought their kicking game was pretty woeful at times last year for the Titans, and we all know how they've got the problems in the outside defence ranks as well, which will continue. But
And there's been no mail yet about, Campbell versus AJ or any of that stuff.
and Harley Shields hasn't sort of set the world on fire anywhere at the moment. He may be a brilliant player and fit in real well at the Titans, but just the way they finished last year, I'd be very surprised if they go backwards.
I just when Ben Hunt and Blake Laurie join in round 10, top 8. So
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Done.
Lovely.
Sorted.
The Storm, again, not a lot to talk about. It's all systems go. Storm, they're going to pick up Sean Bloor, it looks like. So Olam's going
Okay.
north. It hasn't been confirmed and may not happen, but the understanding is that Sean Bloor will join them a year earlier, and he will be fantastic under, if he stays fit, of course, which is always an if, under Craig Bellamy. He will do a good job. But again, short of doing a full season preview and debating about Fayalongo versus Pappenhausen, which we'll do in 2 weeks anyway, what have we got to say here?
Well, been massive raps on Bloor forever.
Yes.
And for mine, he looks like a natural ball player as a back rower. So if they can get him up and get him going, get him fit, I think that adds a lot to an edge, whatever edge they do decide to play him on. Obviously, the consistency's always been his biggest problem, but I think if they can get him right in that system, then yeah, he could finally show some of these, some of the talk that's been going around for years about him. So I think it's a very good move for Bloor if he does end up there. So.
around this time last year, you guys roasted me for it, but I'm going to go for it. I think Melbourne finished 4th. I just think, again, that spine, it's going to get them home in the end. I feel it's one of the best, if not the best, on their day spines in the comp. Even, again, the weakest link in that spine, Nick Meaney, who might not even be playing full. I think by 2025,
Well, I think
there
that's
will
why
be a
they're
few clubs.
No, I think they're happy to let Olam go because Meaney's going to up in the centres.
Probably.
And he'd be a great centre as well. I think
Yeah,
he still starts.
absolutely.
Or even as a wing.
Still
in the
starts.
wing,
the-
you push,
You push Coates in.
yeah.
Coates in.
I think
or the big boy.
Yeah.
what about Jack Howarth, who they've got on 500k for
yeah,
the next
exactly.
10
He's up
years?
their sleeve.
Who hasn't played a
he's a
game.
centre- He's a
Plus,
centre,
they
isn't
have
he?
to get Fayalongo in the
Yeah.
17. Plus, it's like,
Fayalonga has to get in.
I would say Meaney starts the year at fullback. It's more when.
good teams don't let players go for no reason.
Yeah. And I think
Melbourne would be perfectly happy to let Olam go. Same as Penrith. They've let a lot of players go, but have they missed a beat yet? This is a year maybe, but we'll see. I'm sure
still
in a
think-
year's time we'll be raving about May and Tungo in the centres, and we'll be like, oh, well.
I think as well, part of it for me is the teams around them as well. I still think Melbourne can finish a 4th. If not, it'll be the
Yes,
Warriors,
well,
and they'll
I
be
think when we
5th.
get to our season preview,
But
the consensus will be everyone's dropping a peg.
to be honest,
There's only 7 pegs,
to be honest, I guess what I can sum up with Melbourne is they're about where they were this time last year, and that'll probably mean finishing
enough,
4th.
yeah.
Like, I think, yeah.
I think they got a little bit lucky last year. There was a few games where they were dominated in the middle of the field and they got away with wins that they probably shouldn't have. Whether that continues, I'm not 100% sure, but we'll see what plays out, I guess.
Manly, since we last spoke, have re-signed Olakawatu on a 6-year extension, so he's got another 8 years at Manly. So, because the spectre of Scott Fulton and the Tigers loomed over him at the time. Lockie Crocus signed a 2-year extension. Cool. And Corey Waddell has gone there. So, and obviously they've got the imports of Brendan Wakeham's gone there on a training trial.
Well, he's signed for Blacktown, hasn't he?
Yeah, feeder.
Olakawatu was their best forward last year by a fair way. Jakey did his job every week, but as an X-factor player, Ola Kawatu was their best forward, and it's a fantastic signing going forward. Their biggest issue is keeping Tommy on the field. If he plays 15 to 20 games, they probably end up in the top 6. If he doesn't, then they probably end up where they ended up again this year.
Is he going to be fit to start next season?
Yes.
Yes,
Yeah?
apparently.
Okay. I don't
How
think he's
long
a
that
full,
is for, I
he
don't
can't play
know,
fullback
but-
anymore. I'm saying that.
No, I
He
called
can't
him.
be
I
full.
called
But he
him-
doesn't have the same impact if he doesn't.
I know,
I
but
know.
like
I
he's
called
going
on
to
a
get
bold-
injured in
I
2
called
weeks
on
if
a
he
bold
does. Like,
My bold prediction for Manly for this year is that he gets named to start at 4 in one of those games, and they name not KO Weeks, the other.
Ruben Garrick's a perfectly fine fullback.
No,
I think.
no, the other Lightning player.
Not Jason Saab.
No,
The winger.
not Weeks. I'll just tell you now.
Oh,
Anyway, it's a-
cool. No, Cooler's
Cooler.
the centre.
Yeah,
Cooler,
no,
yeah.
Cooler. Cooler's
Until
they
that
named
Cooler,
Cooler at
yeah.
1, and that's how extended. Anyway, it's a bold prediction, but again, not a lot
Probably
of news.
keeps him on the field a little bit more. Their biggest issue was a lot of the same as a lot of teams last year. Their middles is not just nowhere near as strong as it needs to be. Whether they have players that stand up and are better than what they were last year is a big question to ask. But I can see them, being like a 50-50 team. When
Yeah.
their forwards are good, they'll be a decent team. Throw Tommy in, he can win games off his own back. But their forwards are going to be very dependent on how they go this year.
Souths, no news. No news. No news is good news. It's all just business as usual. There was an injury scare for Jack Whiten prior to Christmas, but he should be fine for round 1.
Okay.
They are who they are. Like, what do we have to say about South? So they're a closed shop, which the tidy clubs are. Anything about South you want to talk about?
Despite last year, I think they should make the 8 this year.
I think so. I think they need a forward, but we'll save
They
that for the
should,
preview.
yeah. Cook's a big one for mine. He's got a lot to do with them getting through that middle of the field, as you mentioned. They've got more than enough stock there to run in the top 4, top 6, but it comes back to, I think a lot of last year was a lot of off-field bullshit and stuff that was going on in the background. So that comes down to the coaching staff and the way that the club's structured, and to be able to put a hat on top of it and keep it under wraps. But
Finally, the Knights. They've signed Tom Jenkins from Penrith on a 2-year deal.
Penrith?
Yeah, he was
Tom
the
Jenkins,
Penrith-
he was the
yeah,
winger.
the
No,
winger.
I'm just saying, have we spoken about Penrith?
Yeah, there was nothing to talk
There was
about.
nothing to talk about.
They'll win the comp again. Like they
More
do
than
every
likely.
year.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's like we're saving all that sort of banter for later.
Yep.
If it's a
All good.
he signed
Sorry.
from Penrith. Cool. He'll replace Dom Young, I guess. If not, if they have anyone else up their sleeve, which I can't think of, unless it's a Shabasaki or your man
You
Papalapi or
you don't get. He doesn't get a start in front of
Mapalangi.
Jenkins.
Yeah.
Mapalangi maybe, but I think he's more of a centre than a winger. So
they re-signed
Jenkins
Jacob
probably
Saifidi for till 2027, so he's staying. And Ko Pierce Paul, who's got massive raps,
he does.
he's going for toe surgery. So
Okay.
they're confident he'll be back early season, but
What's he got? Trench foot.
something like that. Yeah, literally something like that.
He caused it.
He
the
caused
Civil
it for
War.
yeah. For a year, he struggled with it. So they said, go get sorted out. But in terms of a Sukoc play, apparently he's very, very good. But that's
Yes.
something else. Again, business issue at Knights. Another team very interesting to talk about when we get to a proper preview. In terms of news, not a lot.
No, they're going to be relying on blokes like Jaden Brayley, who again didn't play fuck all footy last year, and whether they can keep him on the field. And Daniel Saifidi really needs to lift his game, considering where he was the year before. But they've got Ponga there, who's another one like Tom Trebojevic that can win games off his own bat, can set up plenty of points, and they didn't seem to struggle too often to be able to put 20 points on. So that says to me that
Their
they're
point scoring.
more than likely
Absolutely.
able to, probably put away half the competition just on the amount of points that they can put out.
Potsy has messaged in and emailed in and asked which, where are we here?
Coach.
Yeah, who's the coach under the most pressure to perform and who will be first sacked this year? It's actually an interesting year because I can almost see
Funny
a
one,
year
mine,
where
yeah.
I don't think anyone gets sacked.
That was pretty much where I went to when I saw that comment earlier. I think the coach under the most pressure is Ricky Stewart.
Yeah.
And for mine,
And he's almost bulletproof.
he's always been
Teflon
pretty
Rick.
much protected for a long time. He probably should have been under pressure a couple of years ago. But for mine, if they start really poorly and they're down in the bottom 4 come halfway through the season, there has to be questions asked. I don't care how much protection you've got running for you.
Well, his best mate's driving limos now, so...
The only other real one that I could probably see maybe, I know Gus Gould says that, he's got the full backing of me and blah, 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 but how many blokes has he punted in his career when he's been around?
If the Bulldogs are dead last and have won one game in the first
After
10 rounds, then
I'd Serraldo
seriously.
and Ricky Stewart for mine are the 2 most under pressure coaches, and it's going to be that first 10 to 12 weeks where they're going to have to be winning more than 30% of their games. Otherwise, there's going to be some big questions.
All right, bold prediction: if that happens, then the Bulldogs will sign Peter Wallace for their head coach next year, because it seems to be the Bulldogs sign whoever the assistant coach at
Good
Penrith is
grey
at the
man.
time.
I don't know if he's boys coach now, underage.
Well,
He drinks up here
he's
sometimes.
been one of the coaches for ages, and they all seem to.
There's a
filter
lot
to
of
the
coaches
Bulldogs.
now. Like, seriously, it should be the Dragons coach, but he's now just been parachuted
Well,
into that position. So
because he's
you can't,
a
thing-
first year coach.
the thing is,
You're
the
not
thing
gonna,
is
he's not
now-
going to get the boot.
That's right.
Benji's-
Richo's
yeah.
not getting rid of Benji.
No, he's not. Not for at least
Flanagan's
12
not.
months.
They know what they. He would have come in and said, "I'm signing you for 3 years," and you could give him 3
100%.
years. Titan Desi's now bulletproof. Seabold's had a decent enough year. I reckon if it goes to shit, he might be up.
That's
wise
another
a
one.
little
Yeah,
bit,
yeah, a little
but
bit.
I think he's fine. I'm just looking through.
And this is a big if, but if the Cowboys were running close to dead last, then I think Todd Payton had been a bit of trouble. If
I
it,
think
abs-
he's-
from
I
the
think-
fall from grace.
if it
Yeah.
But I
absolutely
think he's got-
capitulates, but that's
I
more
think
at
he's
end
got
of the
plenty of-
season.
I think
That's
he's got
more
plenty of
we'll
cred.
part ways at the end of the. Which, to be honest, with Ricky Stewart, that's probably what will happen with Canberra.
The
They'll
only
part
2
ways at the
coaches
end of
I
the
could
year.
see getting sacked would be Ricky Stewart or Cameron Serraldo. Or if someone like, say, the Sharks come out and lose 10 out of their first 12 games, there'd have to be questions asked of why the hell that happened, but I can't see it happening. But, yeah, the Ricky Stewart and Serraldo for mine would be the 2.
Yes. See if there's anyone obvious I'm thinking of.
I-
No,
I-
I think O'Brien's got built up his credit bank
Yeah,
now.
absolutely.
Demetrio.
Maybe. If
Yeah. Make
again,
sure
if-
They would have to be, as I said, like the Sharks. They'd have to lose 10 out of their first 12 or 13 games.
if you see,
But-
if you would
BA.
Yes.
again, so I would say
I think actually
there'd have to
I'm
be
going to say
question marks
Potsy
around
to your
Brad Arthur.
question.
Yeah.
I would say Brad Arthur and Andrew Demetrio. If either of them are running last,
who's Andrew Demetrio?
South's coach.
Jason Demetrio.
Oh, dang, who's Andrew Demetrio? Singer or something, isn't he?
No one that I know.
He was the.
No,
he
there
used
is
to
a
run
bloke,
the
it's
AFL.
Andrew.
Used
Yes,
to be-
it
he
was.
the JD. I reckon they're the 2. I reckon the bottom 4 or bottom 5, 6, 7 are all bulletproof. Bunnies or Eels will be the first to sack their coach this year if one gets sacked.
Well, I
Bennett
need-
might step down and let old mate take over.
That's already
Well, I
the
was gonna say,
plan.
the
That's
only-
the,
the
that's
only-
the plan.
No, but like
No,
10
but
weeks
the-
into
oh,
the
and
season.
The only other, I was going to say, the only other 2 would be Bennett or Bellamy by
just
choice.
had enough.
But that's, it'd be
they
they wouldn't get sacked. That's a
No.
fuck it. But
Yeah.
I honestly I think Todd Payton, Brad Arthur, and Jason Demetrio are all in the same boat where they're probably fine. But if their teams
They'd have to be
absolutely
bad.
If
capitulate,
South come out and get
it's a
smashed for the
possibility.
first 8 rounds,
Yeah,
Lachlan Ellis will be looking for a job, and Demetrio will be going with
I
him.
think the biggest bloke under threat is
Arthur.
Stewart.
Yes,
yeah, easily.
but he's
Yeah.
just so fucking bulletproof.
No, his mates driving limos now. It's all good.
That is our look through all of the team news. As mentioned, take us an hour and 45 minutes in very quickly.
Beautiful.
We're going to hopefully, you're keen to do a Sunday Arvo show this week, and I'll hit up Danon and GC
Supercoach. Yeah.
and do a Supercoach speculation show.
Have to
Top,
start doing some looking.
I'd have to, you've got the gold. don't you?
Yeah.
For the record, Nico's the most expensive player, 970. Nathan Cleary, Ponga, Drinkwater, Tommy Turbo, still 835. Fafita, Walsh, Gutherson, Johnson, and Tino are the top 10 most expensive. A couple of, just thinking very, very quickly at some plays that might come up that I hadn't have thought of before I've done any research, which I haven't. Flegler at Dolphins might be interesting.
Absolutely.
Hosking now he's gone to Raiders is super interesting for me. And Herbie at Dolphins could be
I think
interesting.
Flegler might even help the lock there at the Dolphins.
Or didn't play. Tough fella. Can't be his name. Ray
Stone.
Stone.
Is that him?
Well, he was injured for half the year, so I can't cut a lot to him. I'd have to look into it.
Yeah,
I'm glad I
think
asked that question.
It'll free up someone in the middle there for the Dolphins. I'm thinking of someone. Anyway,
Nicarima, you got
we'll come
Nicarima
back.
floating
No,
around.
no,
You got
he was a
Marshall
forward.
King floating around. Anyway, well, so possibly this Sunday, which will be up Monday, Tuesday, if GT and
Dana
are
available.
interested, we might do a Supercoach show. I know you don't give a fuck, so don't feel guilty not asking. And
Oh, no, I'll be there.
oh, well, good. Well, I mean, you can be a producer, Ollie, for the day. And anything else before we wrap up, boys?
Evan Parsons, if you're still watching, I want you to reply to your previous comment with the word onomatopoeia.
Right, okay.
Is that a auto fill?
What? I couldn't hear you
Anyway,
behind that car.
we've successfully knocked off an hour and 45 minutes in our first time back.
A fun fact I
else-
learnt over the Christmas
Oh,
period.
yes, gosh.
Yeah. So, 95% of every hand you've ever shook or will ever shake in your life has had someone else's penis in it.
Hey,
Thank you. Good night.
I'm left-handed for the record. Let's finish on that note, eh?
sure.